I'm Stephanie Kirk. I have been a resident of Tennessee for about 15 years, and the first part of that residency I was here in Franklin. At the time that I met GraceWorks, I was a single mother. I had 2 children still at home, 2 who had already left home. My children had grown up with everything. Dirt bikes, we had our house and a lake house, and we just had, everything was okay, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. So when I lived here in Franklin, I lived over off Carriage Park in a little apartment with my son and my daughter, and one night in the middle of the night, never before had this happened, and it hasn't happened since, but he had a severe asthma attack. And I was broke. I don't mind telling you, I had nothing. I had very little money, wasn't sure I was even gonna be able to pay my rent. So I just did what I thought was right through the middle of the night, kept him breathing okay, and went to the health department the next morning, and because I knew there must be free health care somewhere, and I called, and yes, they would see him. And when I got there, the doctor, and I wish I could remember her name, said, "He's really sick. You probably should take him to the hospital." And I started crying, and I said, "I have no money. I don't have health insurance. I'm really struggling, and that will sink me if I go in with no hospital coverage with my child." And so she said, "Well, I'm gonna do some breathing treatments for him today, and when we finish up today, if it doesn't work, I'm gonna send you to the hospital from here. You just have to agree with me that you would do that." And I said, "Absolutely, I will do whatever I need to do for my child." So she did her breathing treatments, and they worked. And before the afternoon was over, she said, "He's gonna be okay." She prescribed an inhaler, and she said, "If you need any more help, just come back." She said, "And I've called GraceWorks, and they're waiting on you. You need to go over there." And I didn't know anything about GraceWorks. I thought it was where I was gonna get medicine, really. And so I said, "Okay, I'll go straight there." She wrote down the address on a piece of paper, and she sent me here. And when I walked in the door, they were waiting for me. I went through the double doors, and there was this grocery cart full, overflowing. And I didn't know what that was at the time. And I said, "My name's Stephanie Kirk." I told them who had sent me, and they said, "Yes, we've been waiting for you." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "We've got some food for you, and we want to just go ahead and put it in your car for you." And I was in shock almost. It had been such a terrible day, such a fretful day. My son was sick, and I was worried about him mainly. And it was as if someone looked into my life and thought, "She's got some needs here that we're going to try to help meet." And at the time, I don't think I realized how desperate my life was, because I was just trying to stay afloat. And so those groceries felt like Christmas, because we were down to maybe a couple cans of beans and some spaghetti noodles, and it was just really hard times. But when I got in the car, my son, I said, "Look, Joe, they're giving us all these groceries," and he started crying. And I said, "Why are you crying? This is like Christmas." And he said, "Because I know this is hurting you. You're very proud, and I know that you are struggling, and it hurts me to see you hurting." And at 12 years old, he was sensitive enough to me to know that I was struggling. And I tried my best to not let him see it, but he saw it, I guess. And so I looked at him, and I said, "I promise you, God's going to take care of us. I'm not afraid, and you don't need to be either. And this is such a blessing." And we went home and had a great meal, and for weeks we ate on those groceries. I've never seen so much food in my car at one time. My son was in the passenger seat, but they filled the back seat and the trunk. And they didn't ask me any questions. They didn't say, "How much money do you make?" They didn't say, "What's going on with you? Why are you even here? Why aren't you able to take care of your children?" They did not make me feel ashamed. There wasn't any agenda. It was just, "We're waiting for you." Prior to visiting GraceWorks and the day I came here, I was at my bottom. Never did I dream that at 40 years old, I would be standing where I was. I felt like such a failure at that moment in my life. And I remember at night when I put my kids to bed praying, "God, do you see me? I'm sorry." I don't know what that doctor told them, but I didn't have to ask for anything. It was here waiting. And it just gave me hope. Grace Works planted a seed of hope in that one encounter that I've never forgotten. From that moment to this, at the time that I met Grace Works, I had just started my business that has been thriving for many years, all on a prayer. It really is phenomenal what God has done in my life. I don't think I've ever been so impacted by something in my life as Grace Works impacted me, because I was in desperate need. And it was such a foreign space for me, and one of great shame. And I was never made to feel anything except loved the moment I walked in here. And I never came back another time. I didn't need to. God just almost immediately started blessing me in my business. And, you know, it just started growing. And I've been so thankful and so aware of the goodness of His bounty in my business. But I've also been very aware every step of the way of where He brought me from. And He used you in a mighty way in my life. And I'm very thankful for Grace Works.